I've been busy. In fact, I've been busy for a bit. For the last 2 to 3 weeks, I've been very focused on the front line. And that means that I haven't really streamed much this month, period. In fact, like I can see when I look at the at our data, there's a huge drop off on the amount of stream time and everything that's associated with that for this month. And the reason that is that at the start of the month, we went to Konstantinivka, and then I had a week where I recovered from that, and I worked on a documentary, did a little bit of streaming, and then this week I went down to Kherson. And there's a good chance that next week I'm going to be going to the front again. It used to be once a month I go to the front. Then this trip, this time in Ukraine, it's every other week. And it looks like we're on path to every week. So, we're kind of intensifying the amount of coverage we're doing at the front line. But that means, something has to give. And that something was streaming, because I have found that it's very difficult to stream on the front line for a variety of reasons. Number one, you're tired. If you're streaming after 12 hours of filming, I did that when I was in Balaklia with the demining teams for a month, and that was hell. I had never exhausted my body in that way before. I remember boxing in high school. I did not feel that exhausted when I would do studies all day. Then all my afternoon was spent in the boxing gym before going home. I felt more exhausted because I was doing 12 hours of filming out in fields, and then I was doing 6 hours of streaming, topping it off with maybe like an hour or so of drinking with the demining crew, because you got to get to know them. You want to understand what they're going through. You want to get on the good side. And so I was just draining all energy and life force out of my body. So I've come to the conclusion, while I'm not against any and all streaming when I am out east, when I find myself in a situation where, every, 5 minutes or so, you hear an explosion, or you're in an area where you really don't want to put a Starlink terminal up because it feels like you're going to make yourself a target, or, there's just, you're tired. I just have decided that it makes more sense in most of these scenarios to wait or do a off-stream recorded segment that can be uploaded and released within 24 hours after I've moved from that location, and any risk that is associated with that decreases. And this is something that I've definitely grown more into as I've gone to the front more and more. Because the thing is, war is all about percentages, and how much you want to risk your life. How much is it worth it to go get this piece of footage? Does it make sense to drive down this roll for some B-roll when every 50 meters you see a burnt out vehicle? And when I was in Konstantinivka, it was like that. It was like that. Every 50 meters, there was a burnt out vehicle. All of the drone nets were torn to all hell. It looked like somebody had ripped apart a wedding veil that had been strewn across the major highways into the city. And I look around and I don't think, wow, let's start an IRL stream. So I have a studio here, obviously in Kiev. It's a bunker studio. I'm able to stream during airstrikes. I'm able to stream basically through everything. I'm able to stream. And, with the power bank that we have, the EcoFlow, we can also stream through quite a bit. Even outages, as long as I got the EcoFlow in place. So I am of the opinion that it makes much more sense for me to be doing these streams when I'm away from the front line. I needed to do better on timing stuff. What I want to do, and I don't know if this is healthy, but what I would like to do is I'd like to stream 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. We might change the time from 6 to some other time that is more human, because 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is 1 a.m. in Kiev. It is 1:55 a.m. right now. Most of the city is asleep. And while there is an appeal, while the city sleeps, we speak about the bomb. There's something there. There's something there. I would also like to have a normal social life. I would also like to be able to have a conversation with somebody, and they're like, hey, do you want to go to the bar later? I'm like, no, I'm sleeping till 4. I would like that not to be a regular response I have to give people. Like, no, I have to sleep till 4 to 5 p.m. And then the next 3 to 4 hours, I got to work on scripts and somehow working a meal, showering, and all the daily, cleaning my apartment a bit before eventually coming out to stream with you guys. And of course, the daily stream research, because I don't just stumble into stream. As fun as it would be to stumble into this program in a drunken stupor and come here and say, fuck the Russian, as if that could be the extent of my commentary, my job would be much easier. I can't. I cannot. So we're going to be adjusting. We're going to be adjusting it a bit, but I'm back and I should be streaming every day next week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's how it should work. Mind you, I'm saying that's how it should work. But that's the plan. And what I would like to do is have those week streaming days and then do shorter frontline embeds during the weekend. Essentially, I stream Monday through Friday. Then I go east, film on the frontline Sunday. If I'm able to get up early enough in the morning, I probably end my stream, get in the car, go out there, sleep in the car, get there. I've done this a few times. And once I get there, film with the artillery team, film with the drone team, film with them, then take another day of filming, and then start driving back Monday. And then by the time I get back Monday, it's about stream time. Now, does that give me much time off? No, technically under this system, it gives me no time off, but it means that I can keep up my streaming to fund my embeds, and it means that I can do my embeds without interrupting the schedule, which Danabo, I would have to say Danabo probably looks like somebody at the top of a very tall building who worked in investment, maybe housing, maybe worked in housing investments in 2008. He's looking at the numbers and he's saying, Dylan, you got to stream more, Dylan. Dylan, you got to stream more. I've got kids to feed. I have 17 children to feed. Is what I assume he has 17. I don't know. I don't know if British people have evolved past, chimney sweep style fun. I assume the way British people fund stuff is they have like 17 kids. Half of them become chimney sweeps. The other half of them get involved in knife crime. And then you're able to sustain yourself off your pension and your kids' income. But I can't really say. Either way, he deserves a decent income. Bop and Wap has $350 is on a 3-day stream streak. Well, congratulations, Bop and Wap. You're tuning in every time. Got a super fan. So anyway, that's the schedule ideas. So I want to get straight into the news because we have quite a lot to cover. We have to talk about Trump and his sanctions and his sanction policy. We need to talk about some Twitch updates about, I don't think it would be radical to say that Twitch is an unsafe space for women, especially TwitchCon, which at this point I would probably just call RapeCon. That might seem a little harsh, and that might mean I'm not going to be invited to any TwitchCon panel, but I wasn't going to be invited to a TwitchCon panel anyway. What are they going to have? Everybody, oh, why do you stream? Oh, I stream because I like to do art. Oh, what do you stream? Oh, I love Lego video games. I love Lego Indiana Jones. I love Lego Star Wars. Oh, what do you stream? Oh, I'm a Minecraft streamer. What do you stream? Oh, I do Dota too. What do you stream, Dylan? I stream the struggle between men till one is dead. Like, yeah, it's not, I don't think it really matches. I don't think it really matches the vibe they are generally going for over at TwitchCon. I don't think that'll work. I don't think that'll work. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what happened in Kherson because, I went all the way out there and I got to say the situation is worse. I don't know if I would use the word a lot worse because I think it could, if you know what's going on in Kherson and you know about the human safari. I don't want to exaggerate, but especially since I'm coming right off of it, and maybe with more time and more reflection, it will feel different in the grand scheme of things for the whole war with time. But as of right now, immediately after coming back from Kherson, it is probably the worst it has ever been there when it comes to the targeting of civilians, When it comes to indiscriminate fire, I mean, it's probably as I mean, when it comes, it's worse than when the Novikakhovka Dam blew up. Not when it comes to the amount of destruction caused in a short period of time, but when it comes to the targeting of civilians and just the amount of fire I heard when I was there for the Novikakhovka Dam explosion, I would probably hear artillery fire every 10 to 15 to 20 minutes, something in that range. And mind you, they were bombing the city within 48 hours of the dam exploding and drowning the elderly and the disabled on the coast. They were bombing aid workers on multiple occasions. I would run into aid workers with giant scars on their face, and they like could see the staples like freshly placed. They're like, "Oh, I got that from Russian shrapnel on this aid mission. We were trying to evacuate an elderly person." I'd walk around and I'd see homeless people with giant gushing head wounds that somebody had feebly tried to wrap up with a bandage, but the man himself seemed like he could barely tell because he was drunk off his ass, and it was just a bad time then. It was a bad time. I'm very thankful that John Jones survived his stomach wound when he was bombed when we were doing those aid missions, but it was bad then. This time, I would say I heard explosions about every 5 minutes. Maybe let me give a little bit more variety. Every 5 to 8 minutes, but I would say there was never an hour that passed, period, where I didn't hear something. And more regularly, it was 5, 10 minutes, maybe 20 if we're in a really good spot, a really good period of silence. I heard it when I was at the flea market, when looking at watches and looking at like ashtrays that I wanted to buy. I bought a really cool ashtray. It was like a Cossack with smoking a pipe on a boat, and the boat itself is the ashtray. I really do like it. I heard it when I was at church, talking to pastors, talking to church staff. I heard it when I was, bunking with other people on the, in the area, and I heard it from our house. I heard it from inside the city itself. I heard it from just about everywhere. And I'll just describe a few instances as to the situation down there. Let's start with a positive. I think it's good to start with a positive. While I won't say exactly what is covered by drone netting, because I don't know what is and is not public information, and I did hear a story about one person being mobilized after filming the wrong thing in Kherson. Now, I don't think I will get drafted, but I also don't want to cause trouble for anyone. And so I'll just put it like this. There is, for the first time in Kherson, serious drone netting. Every other time I went to Kherson, both to film my documentary about the human safari, back when I was, responding and filming the humanitarian efforts to save lives after the Novikakhovka dam explosion, there was really no drone netting. Now there is extensive drone netting in areas of the city where it's work. Not in all the areas of the city. And, the drone netting's obviously not perfect. Drone netting isn't going to stop a Lancet. There was a story recently about in Kramatorsk, a location that was covered in drone netting, a location that I was at a week before getting hit by a Lancet drone. And a Lancet drone has a lot more punch, so it went straight through that drone netting, and it killed a journalist and their cameraman. And that was a gas station that me and my fixer actually stopped at a week ago in order to get gas and pick up snacks. So, that's pretty tiresome. It's pretty bad. But in Kherson, obviously, the drone netting having some protection when, the grenade dropping drones and the FPV drones are the big terror on the streets. Obviously, extra drone netting is good. And I would say that there are I saw that there were still foreign, I'm looking for the positives here. I saw that there were still foreign aid workers in the city and that they were still coming, which is good. And this last one, I don't know if it's a positive, but I'm going to call it a positive just so we can fill up the positive, trait tree. I don't know what you would call it, but The security there when it comes to checking documentation, looking for Russian infiltration, and such is quite extensive. And that is to say that they look through my passport 20 times. And that is not an exaggeration. And I must have gone through, I can't tell you how many SBU officers when I was trying to get on home from the train, wrapping up in Kherson, just scrolling through my passport again and again and again and again, flipping through the same things, as if the third time you flip through the passport, you're gonna, oh, there it says Russian spy. There it is. So, okay, those are all the things that you could define in some ways as positive. So, one more positive. I embedded with a military unit that used to be territorial defense, but then got upgraded to a Marine brigade, the 34th. And look at their patch. The crab. You want to know what? You want to know how I got this patch? I had my Maryland crabbing patch. I mean, my Maryland crabbing shirt. I have a shirt that I wear when I crab. Okay? It has a big Maryland flag on it, but it's in the shape of a crab. Very basic, okay? Stereotypical Marylander. It is what it is. I snort Old Bay. They, once Bogdan saw the crab, said, oh, Dylan, show your shirt. I showed it and immediately just handed this to me. Because I guess, we're animal kin. I don't know. So, there are people there that are seriously concentrating on protecting Kherson. And I embedded with 2 groups, an FPV group and a night bomber group, that are both prioritizing the targeting of Russian drone pilots in Kherson. The same Russian drone pilots that have been messing up civilians and infrastructure in Kherson. And I do hear that Rubicon, which is one of the really, really good Russian drone groups, is also operating in Kherson. And so any opportunity the Ukrainians can take to wear down Rubicon or cause them problems is an opportunity that should be taken, considering the amount of damage that Rubicon has caused for the Ukrainian armed forces, as Rubicon takes money out of Putin's personal funds and such. Look, I'm getting a little trudged down and trying to find positives. Let me get into being a little blunt here. The bombing was bad. I remember I was laying down. I think it was early in the morning. I'm sorry, it's been a long week. And I'm awoken by what must have been like 12 to 14 explosions, roughly at the exact same time. And when you have those many explosions at the same time, well, it isn't impossible that they all coordinated their artillery and their mortars at the exact same moment. That type of stuff does happen. What that usually means is that Grad rocket systems are working. And what Grad rockets are is that they're MLRS rocket systems, which stands for Multiple Launcher Rocket System. The idea is you put like 30 of these tube rockets in the back of a truck and you just fire them at a general area. And the amount of overwhelming firepower and rockets falling down on a position, even if half of them miss, half of them might not. And the volume is what causes the damage. And as I hear this rapid fire, like, as I hear that, and I look out my window, from the perspective of where I was sitting, it looked like roughly half of Kherson City had smoke rising from it in some way. Now, it wasn't half of Kherson City. It was a good chunk of the city at different points across half of it. But it was along a huge area of control. And I did film it, but I can't release that footage right now because I haven't censored it so that nobody can tell exactly what house that we're in, because I don't want to bring any undue attention to the people who have been very kind, have been hosting us, has been working with us to make sure that we can get good stories and such. So I'm not going to show that footage, but I do have other footage that I tried to prepare. I prepared it right as we were getting started. So I hope that this shows you from a closer perspective exactly what was happening there.
пидорасы. Хуярят по-страшному. Вот такое у нас утро. Ёбаные ишаки. Шуменский в огне.
So if you're in the middle of that, that's pretty overwhelming. And you can see, even from that on the ground perspective, that these MLRS rockets were falling like all over the place. I was reading the Russian reports about it afterwards, and they were saying, like, oh, we killed X, Y, and Z soldiers. I wasn't able to confirm any military casualty. Now, I mean, I didn't overturn every rock, go through the rubble of every building. I did go to the strike sites a few hours after, because I basically, this is how it worked for me in the morning. I wake up to the sound of grad rockets. I go to the window. I see explosions happening across like half the city. I film it. It stops. Then I go back to bed. Then I wake up later, and then I go to the strike. Tired. We were filming with FPV teams the night before. So obviously, I needed to get my sleep if I was going to be doing other military embeds or just going around Kherson, period. To walk around Kherson is to risk your life. But it really was, from my perspective, indiscriminate. And here is what I would assert. It was also indiscriminate from the Russian side as well. We do have some footage, and I wanted to show you this, of Russian drone footage showing exactly everywhere their grad rockets made impact over the span of 2 minutes. Now, mind you, that they talked about how this was going after military targets. But if you watch this drone footage, this rocket fire, and they brag about it in the comments, like the destructive, accuracy, XYZ. I had to take this from their Telegram channel. This is probably some of the most inaccurate grad artillery fire I have ever seen. And I want you guys to do what I did and count the amount of these shots that missed our target by such a distance that they're just falling in the river. They're just falling in the river. Let me play this for you. I'll play the music for 3 seconds so you guys know what song they're playing, to just show you with the amount of seriousness that the Russians are treating this. Mind you, a woman did die. A woman did die during these strikes. So there were civilians did die. We know civilians died in these strikes. And by the time that they released the footage, it was already being publicized that civilians had died in these strikes. And they still decided that this was the tune that they wanted to have. Let's put the footage up there. Okay, I'm turning off the music. You all know what song that is. You get the idea. I don't want to play any more of it for copyright reasons and just basic decency. But you can see the grad rockets making impact. But look at the width at which they're impacting. You see these grad rockets fall in the river again and again and again. It's over such a wide area that to look at this grad rocket fire and say, oh, we killed so much military personnel. It's over such a wide area. How do you know at all what you're attacking? How do you know at all what you're bombing? Mind you, there are a lot of people still in Kherson. When I was at the flea market, there were plenty of people to haggle with and go in there and negotiate prices on X, Y, and Z. There were plenty of people walking on the streets in the safer part of the city. There are still children in Kherson. I saw the children in Kherson, and I talked to church directors and youth group directors that work with the children in Kherson who do not have in-person classes because it's too dangerous, who all have online classes and have lost the last 5 years of socialization due to both COVID and the war going back to back. These people are still all over the city, and this grad rocket fire is over such a girth, over such a wide area. With a lot of them falling in the river, a lot of them falling on civilian homes. I went to one apartment complex that had a rocket tear right in the middle of it, and I was watching people next to the apartments, right next to the apartments that were completely burnt out and destroyed and had the balcony ripped straight off of it by these grad rockets. Civilian apartments, just installing wood into what was once a window so that they can deal with the winter chills. So, I would say that not particularly accurate grad rocket fire. The very big area of effect that the Russians wanted to hit. Now, that's the first thing. Another thing is the Russian drone pilots are still as active as ever. I think I heard drones on a few occasions, but for me, interacting with the drones this time was more their handiwork, the aftermath. Between military embeds, I had we were going between military embeds and we were moving from one location to another location. I don't want to say exactly what I was doing at the time for security stuff, but I was moving around for my embeds. And there was this crumpled up mass in the middle of the street in the early morning. It must have been something like, I don't know, 7:30 a.m., something along those times. And there was this crumpled mass. I didn't know what it was at first. And then I realized it was a jacket. And then I realized something was wearing the jacket. And then I realized that it was a person as we drove up closer. An elderly person, an elderly woman that was taken out by a grenade drop drone minutes before we had gone into the area. It was an old woman that many of the people in the area knew. They posted about it on Telegram. There are social media posts around on it. We did not get out and take pictures. I wanted to. I asked to. But due to the fact that the Russians had just killed her and the Russians could very much still be in the area, the people that we were with wanted to keep moving. It has been republished already on Telegram channels. I don't think I really want to show any photos of it right now, because I honestly don't know if I can show photos of it. Actually, there is one censored photo. That maybe I can. You know what? I think it's better not to. I think it's better not to. I'll do my best to describe it. It was really just a pool of blood around an elderly woman that had a bunch of holes punctured into her. I don't know why it's always the elderly. When I was in Sumi, it was a nursing home. It was a nursing home for an it was an elderly man that had been dragged out of a nursing home that the Russians had hit with a missile. In Konstantinivka, it was an elderly man that we were supposed to evacuate, but we just got there too late. The bombing killed them. And in Kherson, it was an elderly woman that was just walking in the morning, going to pick up essentials, groceries, and such, which is much more dangerous now. When I was talking to some of the people in the church, they were saying that they have expanded their aid operations to include water delivery to the homes of people because many people are too scared to go and get water themselves. In fact, the days where you'll see the most human activity are the days where the weather is the worst. The reason being that rain and wind and stormy weather is very difficult for drone operators to navigate in. And so often when it's downpouring and raining really hard, you'll see the most people moving around because they've basically been told, oh, it's safe. Now you can still be taken out by artillery. You can still be taken out by mortars. There's a bunch of things that can take you out. But considering that of the 2,000, over 2,800, almost 2,900 civilian casualties that have mounted in Kherson since the human safari started, there's mostly been drones, and so people like to take the opportunity. And it's really it's difficult because I have a really pretty big soft spot for the elderly. I was raised by my grandparents. I was raised specifically to respect our elders, and I think it's just the lack of threat that outrages me. A nursing home, an old man in Konstantinivka I mean, the thing with the drone is the drone to me is murder. Drone is the drones are the closest you can get outside of small arms fire for murder to clearly murdering civilians. The grad rocket fire, you could kill through indiscriminate fire. That can still be horrific killing, but there's no camera attached to the grad rocket as it makes impact. You can't exactly see exactly what every grad rocket fires, and so you can disconnect yourself from the murders and the killings and the death that you are causing by getting down into a grad position, getting the coordinates from command, adjusting the coordinates, preparing to fire, then firing, readjusting, firing again, and then getting out of there. And by doing that, by being, keeping your attention on, oh, is there any drones in the area that's going to hit us? Oh, let me adjust this. Let me do the mathematics that are necessary for this job. Oh, let me do X, Y, and Z. And you're not looking at any screens. You're having radio command tell you, hey, that's not accurate. Adjust it this way to the left, that way to the right. It disconnects you in a way that does not remove you of any culpability, but it removes you of making the violence personal. It removes how personal the violence is. Where when we saw that dead elderly woman in the street that was murdered by a drone drop grenade, to drop a grenade on somebody, you have to have a live video feed of them. You have to be able to look at them and see where they are, what they do, or what they're doing, and depending on the quality, maybe who they are. Of course, it varies, but if there's an elderly woman with a cane walking, it's pretty obvious. If there's a firefighter in a firefighter's uniform, it's pretty obvious. If there's an ambulance, if there's a fire truck, if there's city employees street sweeping, these are all things that you should be able to clearly see from this type of drone footage, especially since Mavics and grenade dropping drones specifically have to be pretty close to their targets to do their work. FPV drones, of course, slam straight into the target. So while the drone has the screen which removes you from the personal violence of, say, a rifle and having to aim and fire at them right in front of you, and some people, I remember hearing soldiers say, there was this one interview where a Ukrainian soldier said, the worst part of killing was the begging. That when I would kill a Russian, I would hear them beg. Once the first round made impact and their lungs started to fill, or that real tinge of fear as they realize, oh my God, I'm dying. And everything in every part of your body, fear grips you, your instincts tell you, stop anything to live. The begging of oh God, please no, I have kids, I have that. That was the worst, because they would just have to kill them as they begged, because it was a big assault and there's more Russians coming. They fall into the trench, you shoot them, they hit the ground, there's more coming. They're like, please no, you don't have time to take a POW. Depending, of course, if the soldier wants to. Of course, they should if they have the opportunity. And so you shoot the begging man. It reminded me of a video I saw recently of in Constantinople of a Russian soldier. It felt like they were just strolling down the street. They didn't have their gun at the ready. They didn't look like they were really that much on the lookout for anything. And a Ukrainian soldier goes right up to the side of them and just bang, just right in the side of the head. And in the last second, before his brains hit the pavement, he looks to his side and his arms start to move like this. Now, I can't get an exactly perfect view of it. It could be that he's reaching for his gun, but it looked like he was in the first stages of surrender. But he didn't get to finish surrendering. Man shot him, and the Ukrainian, after shooting him in the side of the head, and he just falls over, slinks back into the bush. That type of work is personal. You have to look at their face. You have to hear the sounds they make. You have to see the impacts. You need to see how your work disfigures somebody's son. That's very personable work. Not personable. That's shooting somebody in the face is very personable. You want to make friends, shoot somebody in the face. But it's very personal work. It's the type of thing you have to look at in the eye. You have to look at in the face.
Burns is an immoral, morally corrupt, bankrupt man.
Whereas with drone footage, that same soldier that talked about how bad it was to hear the begging said, well, when it's a drone footage, it's like a video game. Much easier. You don't hear them begging. There's no audio. If you turned on the audio for those drones patrolling around the front, all you would hear is their propellers going bzzz, and I hate that sound. And you don't want to hear it longer than you have to. So you don't hear anything. You see them like running around and like like scrambling for this or scrambling for that. And that still sends a tinge into me, but it's not the same. It's not the same as, having to smell it if you're in the position for days later and, no opportunity to go clean the field or clear the field of bodies. Because when you're looking at the drone footage, definitely around Pokrovsk, it was just like fields of bodies, man. Just body after body after body, just kind of like all in these clumped up together in routes where people were moving together. Sometimes it's these lines of men that have these like thermal blankets where they try to move together, but they don't really either command and tell them how to properly use it, or they get spotted anyway, and they all get blown up together. And they pile up because after that team gets hit, the Russians send another team and another team and another team. And so the bodies just start accumulating around basically any infrastructure and around the pathways by which the Russians try to make their way to the front. But when it's on a screen, you don't have to get physical. But despite the fact that it's less personal, you still see everything. You see the movements they make. You can see, like, as you get closer and closer and closer, the image becomes more defined. And so it is not impossible for an FPV drone to go, 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 and in the last few seconds be like, oh, wait a second, and then turn away. That's happened. I know instances of aid workers telling me of stepping out of their van, going like, please don't kill us. I have elderly people in the van. Now, that same person told me that 3 times it didn't work and they got hit anyway. But once or twice, it did. Where the person piloting the drone looked at this elderly man evacuating other elderly women, other elderly people, and they just said, I'm getting paid $3,000 to $4,000 a month for this. It's just not worth it. And they just fly away and they go do something else. But it doesn't always work, as was the case with the woman. Always the elderly. I mean, I've seen other bodies before. I've seen a lot of Russian bodies, mostly through body recovery, bodies that were taken from the Russians. They tried to assault in the Sumy, and they took quite a few casualties trying to push and pressure the Ukrainians to disperse their forces. And the Ukrainians retrieved the Russian bodies to exchange them for both Ukrainian bodies so they can get them back or otherwise exchange for other things. And that's terrible, but it's also like at that point, like the life is completely gone out of the corpse. It's like half a skull, the skin has been stretched. They're like bloated, and you're standing and you're like hoping it doesn't explode as they try to check documents in the pockets or whatever to see if there's any identifying characteristics that can help them in the exchange process. It stinks. That's probably the worst part, was the stench and the maggots. Honestly, I don't know if the stench and the bloated, the fact that they were bloated, I think those two things were the worst. But there's a difference when a corpse has been bloated and rotted away for weeks or months versus when it's like they're asleep with their eyes open. Especially when it's like an elderly person who didn't sign no contract to go anywhere. Just somebody going to go pick up their pension or go buy a Kherson watermelon. I don't know. Go get medicine. I remember interviewing that woman getting medical attention after she got bombed in the leg after she was trying to get medicine for her husband. Another bomber drone, by the way, grenade dropping drone. The grenade dropping drones in Kherson have butchered a lot of civilians. So still as bad as ever when it comes to grenade dropping drones and FPV drones in Kherson. The bombing, I would say, is right now it feels worse. The bombing feels worse. And there are some pretty quality Russian drone pilots. Not to say like quality people, but these are skilled Russian drone pilots that are operating in the area. While it's still speculated that the Russians use Kherson as a training ground, both hunting civilians, rescue personnel, and you know, even animals. I've seen dogs targeted and small pets and such for training purposes, so they can be redeployed to other parts of the front. The deployment of groups like Rubicon there shows a clear interest in trying to keep a ton of pressure on Kherson, a ton of pressure on the population there. And the Russians are being, and like every day, the Russians are more open about these tragedies. It's hard to imagine how more open can you be than, here's my war crime, and then you just post it on Telegram, which is what they did when they war crimed me and my friends, which is what they did when they, you know, threw these grad rockets all across Kherson, which is what they did when they bombed ambulance workers, which is what they did when they bombed UN trucks, which is what they did when they bombed the elderly, and is what they did when they bombed firefighters. But recently, there was a Telegram post by one of these Russian military groups, and they said, we are going to bomb firefighters because firefighters help attend to civilian infrastructure, which we think is crucial. And since they're putting out fires that we started the fires for a reason, therefore we can kill them. But they didn't just say that we can kill them and that we will kill them. They even said, they went further to said, firefighters are a priority target. A priority target for Russian drone pilots. Meaning that those who are trying to put out the fires in civilian homes, and I've seen them. I've seen the firefighters trying to put out fires, not in a massive railway that transports munitions to the front, not in some ammunition storage house that is, you know, full of munitions that are just waiting at any moment to be destroyed so the Ukrainians have less supplies, or some big barracks, but local civilian homes where they've thrown incendiary bombs in there. Firefighters come out, try to put it out. They bomb the firefighters, not just the fire trucks and the tools that they use, but the firefighters themselves. I remember interviewing medical personnel in Kherson and hearing stories about ambulance drivers getting scalped by drones during missions to go save the elderly, which live near the coastline and in the east of the city, near the islands where it's particularly bad and the majority of civilians have been evacuated. I went near those islands on this trip. One of those islands the Russians claimed to capture, and I can tell you, they didn't. I don't know why the Russians are claiming that they captured that island. The footage that they posted, here's a pro tip to figure out if somebody's being for real, if they captured something or not. If you capture something, if you just did some great historical achievement, if you're the Ukrainian or Russian, you're the Ukrainian that just took back Mariupol, or the Russian that just captured, I don't know, Kramatorsk, which is, of course, a long-term goal for the Russians. You're going to take your camera and you're going to film everything. You're going to be like, look at me. I've just achieved this great thing. Oh, my gosh. And you're going to be filming every angle. You're going to be filming you and your boys. Maybe you're smiling. Maybe you're not smiling, depending on how bad it was. But you're going to film everything possible to both prove it and to show off. So if you instead release footage of a very tight shot of people trudging through muddy and murky water where you don't clearly get to see the geography, and then you say, we captured XYZ, well, then that's bullshit. Because we know that if they did capture something of that significance, they would be showing it off in every way possible for the propaganda outlets. And plus, the Russians have the least amount of troops in Kherson as of right now that they've had since probably 2022. So the idea that right now they're launching island hopping campaigns to retake the Kherson Islands on their pathway to take back Kherson, the only regional capital the Russians have both taken and lost during the whole war. It's just too hard to believe, especially considering the aggression in which the Russians are attacking on not only the Pokrovsk axis, but on the Konstantinivka axis, on the Liman axis, on the Kupiansk axis, and even on the I even saw some movement on the Vovchansk axis in Kharkiv, in northern Kharkiv, near Lipsy and such. So it's just and not to mention there was that recent mechanized offensive down on the Zaporizhia front. Now that didn't go too well for the Russians. They lost a lot of vehicles and a lot of men, but obviously those vehicles and men have to come from somewhere. And the idea that while they're doing all that, they were able to not only engage in an island hopping campaign based off of their type of tragic hopefulness in the success of their operations, but to succeed in it, it's just not believable. We were like not too far from the island. I don't want to say how far because then it might give up like a position. But it was pretty clear that they did not capture it. I guess you could put that in the good news category. I don't have not a very positive sounding stream segment on all this, is it? Anyway, the bombing in Kherson is worse. The FPV pilots and the grenade dropping drones are still targeting civilians, as we saw. And I went to one of the church staff, one of the sons of a pastor, the same son of a pastor I actually interviewed for the Kherson documentary. One second, let's see if I can pull this up here. Dylan Burns TV. Can we go to that amazing YouTube channel? That amazing YouTube channel that some of you might be aware of. This guy that I interviewed at the start here.
When I first got to Kherson City, between sentences, devotion seeps. A devout Protestant evangelical church worker from the city. His devotion seeps from his words, with religious proclamations punctuating the breaks between sentences. His piety comes from a lifetime of being surrounded by the church in both work and home life, with his father dedicated to proselytizing the faith since he was born. After the Russians left the city and retreated over the river, Kirill and his family came right back to Kherson from California to set up a church to preach, baptize, and provide aid to locals out of an abandoned Soviet-era cultural center. But as the people returned to their homes, the presence of Russian soldiers was replaced with the whistle of Russian shells.
This feels like a lot to be destroyed by a drone.
3 drones, to be
Three
exact.
drones.
3 Shahid drones. We even have some of the parts.
Oh, Shahid. Okay, got you.
No, not FPV.
Yeah, I was like, that's incredible.
FPV drones would have never hurt even one wall.
Yeah.
We were doing a lot of fixing here.
By the way, the area around this church, oh my gosh. The school was bombed. So many of these new locations were bombed. But this guy, Kirill, cool dude, really nice guy. He used to live in Cali. That's why he sounds so Yankoid. Very West Coast Yankoid, but still Yankoid.
7 guys from Pennsylvania. They're from a Chazak rest organization, and they were helping us for 3 weeks rebuilding a lot of stuff here. So we had a pool here a month ago, and we had water baptism, and the shrapnel, it was Monday night, right after Sunday service, and the shrapnel flew, hit the pool, but it did not touch the stage at all.
Anyway, his house got bombed, and I went and I saw it. They had a backyard pool completely blown apart. What looked like, now I'm guessing, because I was able to take a look at the shrapnel and I was able to look at the impact. It looked like it was either a 122 millimeter artillery shell or a 120 millimeter mortar. Like one of the two. Looking at the size of the crater, that's my guesstimation. I'm not saying that as an expert, but some sort of shell slammed into his backyard, tore his pool apart. A pool that they actually been given for free, and they actually took back from California to Ukraine, made this huge trip just to be exploded in their backyard. The shrapnel tore into their back house and into their hallway, shattering all their windows and damaging their house. They had just left the house 10 minutes prior to the bombing. So, I mean, the bombing regularly crosses into civilian areas, and the human safari is as brutal as ever in Kherson. Why go after a pool, those monsters? I don't think they were going after a pool. I think that it's just that I know you're being facetious here, but I think it's just the firing indiscriminately. I mean, that's what it was like after the Kherson dam explosion. Anyway, very bad situation in Kherson, but there's also a lot of good people doing work down there. A lot of people who really still love Kherson and do their best to take care of it. Okay. I think that's enough talking about I think that's enough talking about that last trip to Kherson. I plan to do some more embeds in the near future. I want to do as many embeds as possible before I go back. So the way we're going to the front is every week or every other week right now. So it will probably continue to cut into streaming, but I feel compelled. So sorry. Okay. Let's move on. Oh, also, I posted the first footages. I guess they're technically behind the scene footages of my Pokrovsk documentary. Now, this is not footage that we're going to include in the documentary. This is footage that was taken by my fixer while we were filming in Pokrovsk itself. Obviously, the situation in Pokrovsk right now is pretty difficult. We're going to get into that later in today's stream. But I wanted to show you a little bit of footage since we're going to be releasing the Pokrovsk documentary on November 1st. Nearly 2 hours long, filmed over the span of a year, lasting from July of 2024 to October of 2025. That's how long we were filming on the Pokrovsk front from outside of Avdiivka all the way up into the city. And so we have a lot of footage. We have footage with grad rocket teams. We have footage with artillery crews. We have footage with FPV teams, multiple FPV teams. We have footage with civilian aid workers. We have footage with refugees and displaced people. We have footage with all sorts of people. But I wanted to show some footage from Pokrovsk itself because Bogdan, he loves his he loves to film off of his phone. If you check out a lot of my footage, you can see, for example, my favorite is in the BMP video, where you could see me like getting the spanning shot of the location in Srebrenicki Forest. That position's long gone, long been occupied now probably for months. But you can see the spanning shot, and you see Bogdan just on his phone, like, oh. So he's always filming on his phone when he can, and every once in a while, it gets some interesting shots. Like for example, this one, where there is a drone that you can literally see. Now you don't see it on this, but you can hear it very clearly. But you could see it with your eyes about 100 to 200 meters away. It was armed with an RPG warhead. And the fact that we could see that it was an RPG warhead, that's the litmus test. You know how they say, like, if there's an atomic explosion, if there's a nuclear bomb that goes off, you take your thumb, and if it's bigger than your thumb, you're screwed. If you can see what warhead is on the FPV, that is a bad sign. Here is that footage where in Pokrovsk, you got two places to hide. You've got the best place to hide, which are burnt out buildings. And the second best place, which a lot of times is just the option you have in the moment, it's under trees. But this is going to be more difficult as the fall continues to have the leaves fall off these trees. And it's not going to provide the same greenery and coverage that it did during the summer and spring months.
Dylan, what do you think?
Sounds like a race car.
Not scary?
I mean, like, it gets a little less every time. Once you hear it, you hear it on repetition. But, I should keep that, though. It's important to keep.
It is important to keep that feeling in your chest, or you're gonna slow down your response time a bit. And I think right now my response time is still okay. Still okay. I would say maybe a little bit more urgency would have been maybe appreciated. Here is another shot, which is us doing the other option. That was us hiding under a tree because that's all that was available at that 1 second. The other one is us hiding in an apartment building, and this was when the drone was quickly flying right over our position. Not intended for us, by the way, but a lot of these times what happens with the flyover position en route to a target, then they'll see a different target, and then they'll go after that. Because, one in the hand is better than two in the bush is the expression. So I think, they can either go after it then, or they'll radio back, and then other FPVs, because there's so many FPVs flying over the city at any one point in time, other FPVs will scramble quickly to your position in very quick fashion. Back at the start of the war, we're talking about like 15-minute response times for artillery, lumbering in comparison to like the 30 seconds it could take for an FPV from another team that's already in the air. Once they talk to their boys on Discord, yes, the Russians use Discord to communicate. And they're like, hey, yo, there's a guy over here, and they'll send a drone and it'll immediately take you out. Or once they finish with that target, they'll send another drone to come follow up and look for you. Because all they have to do is see a little bit of movement. Anyway, here's us running into a building. Then you get back to work. Then you get back out. You got to keep moving. You don't want to get stuck in one spot for too long. Anyway, we'll release the full Pokrovsk documentary on November 1st. It's going to be almost 2 hours long. Bird in the hand. I know it's a bird in the hand. I said one in the hand. But I'm not a bird. So I don't know if I should refer to myself as the bird there. Either way, I hope you guys check out the documentary when we release it. We worked on it for over a year. So I hope you give it a little watch. Give it a little look-see. Appreciate it. Okay.